Hey, we're going to talk about storytelling. Storytelling is really nice because it's a way of hiding suggestions in like entertainment, basically. Storytelling is used in lots of traditions. It's been used in India, it's been used by indigenous American traditions, it's been used in Mongolia, it's been used like all around the world. It's been used by the Druids and the Bards back in Western Europe, UK, as ways of producing changes or teaching concepts to the unconscious mind in a way that is engaging and symbolic. So you could tell a story that actually doesn't sound anything like it's relevant to the issue that's arising. For example, someone wants to learn something new, and every time someone comes to a hypnotherapy session, they're usually there to learn something new, whether that new thing is a behavior, or that new thing is a skill, or that new thing is public speaking, that new thing is being confident, that new thing is overcoming an addiction. There's so many ways you can illustrate that journey and use other seemingly unrelated things to describe it. So you can imagine only imagining now, so actually one of the practices of my friend John. Basically, this is a really simple way of storytelling. My friend John wanted to become an archer. And he was really into archery, and of course, in England, archery is not a very interesting subject. It's not very common. It used to be used a lot more, but he went to Japan. He particularly wanted to learn these Japanese forms of archery where they ride the horse and they pull the bow and they wail, oh, and then they let go of the arrow and it hits the target and then they bounce forward on their horse with some kind of like howling, amazing, courageous roar. So he goes to Japan to study this. And at first he wasn't very good. He would go to the practice range and he would put his feet on the grass, practicing firstly without the horse. He'd practice just standing on the grass, feeling the way his feet felt against the grass. He'd pick up his bow, stretch the bowstring back, feel the tension there, let go of the arrow as he watched it sail towards the target. And he'd miss the bullseye, it would be slightly off and he'd miss it. And he'd say to his teacher, Master, I keep missing the bullseye, what should I do? And his teacher would look, and he looked very calmly and said, practice, practice more, practice. So every morning he'd wake up with the sunrise and go to the practice field with his bow and his arrow, and he'd pick up the bow, pull the string back, feel the tension, release the arrow and watch as it sailed towards the target, just slightly missing the bullseye. And frustrated though he was, the master would tell him, practice. Practice. Keep practicing. And so he'd wake up with the sun. And some days he'd feel like it wasn't possible to reach that target. It seemed like he'd try and he'd miss that target. But every morning, after that sunrise, he'd go down to the field, stand on the grass, feeling the grass against his feet, lifting up his long old bow, pulling back the string, feeling the tension, releasing the arrow, watching it sail and hit just by the target. So, remembering the words of his master, to practice, and to keep on practicing. He would continue. You know, hypnotherapy is a lot like this. That when you practice and practice and practice, there'll be some bullseyes that you miss, and some that you might just need to practice again and again, and things can change. Like that one day when John got up at sunrise, went to that field with his feet on the grass. It was a very dewy morning, a lot of condensation. You could see the droplets of water on the grass. And he'd pick up his bow, pull back the string, feel the tension, let go and watch as the arrows sail through the air. And somewhat expecting the arrow to miss, this time John saw that the arrow hit the bullseye. And once again, curious as to whether he could do it again, and remembering the words of his master to practice, practice, again practice, he decided to try again, picking up his bow, pulling back the string, releasing the arrow and watching it sail through the air as it hit the bullseye once again. And he was surprised to find that he could hit that bullseye, and that repetition made it possible for him to learn a new skill with ease. And there are many skills you can learn through repetition, many habits that can be learned through repetition, like shooting an arrow is just a habit, just muscle memory, focus, intention, alignment. All of these things are learned over time. There are many things that are learned over time through repetition and through practice. And John went to his master and said, "Wow, master, I can do it. I hit the bullseye every time." And the master didn't even smile. He just looked at him with a serious expression, very still, very calm. And he said, "Now, I want you to miss the target on purpose." And John was a bit confused by this, because he was hitting the target every single time. But he woke up at sunrise, stood on the grass. Some mornings it was sunny and dry, in the mornings it was wet. In the winter it was cold, sometimes there was snow. He'd pick up his bow, stretch the string back and find that he hit the bullseye. He was really frustrated about this. He says to his master, "I can't miss the bullseye. I keep hitting the bullseye." And his master would say, "Practice, practice, practice more." And of course he did. And after many practices, he could deliberately miss that bullseye. And he found that then he had the choice to be creative, to hit wherever he chose. And not only learning new skills, but also unlearning those skills to have more freedom, more accuracy, more intention, more power. That's my story. What was in that story? What do you think that story had in it? What was going on in there?
Suspense.
Suspense. What was it that made suspense?
Waiting for John to hit the target.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, What else was in the story that you noticed?
The power lies in John.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, with the intention of practicing, and the efforts,
Yes.
he will actually reach his goals.
Mm.
Like, intention plus attention.
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, it gave us like a message that of, that the power lies in God. And then what does that say to the person you're telling the story to?
That's you're capable of doing, of
Yeah.
learning anything you want if you are focusing on that, and also if you're taking the time to nurture that skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's,
And I really love the last part about learn to unlearn, so that you can actually decide if you want to
yes.
reach it or not, and have this freedom. I think it was beautiful.
And then there's sub-modalities,
Yeah.
the description of the grass and the snow and cold.
Yeah.
The tension of the boat.
Yeah, because I could say something like John he picked up his bow, let go of the arrow, he missed the target.
Yeah.
But it's a little less immersive.
You make it like realistic
Yeah.
with all these details, as you mentioned, like the description.
Mm-hmm.
So is it about telling these stories while they're in trance and then it subtly programs without giving direct suggestions?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I actually put some embedded suggestions in there. I snuck suggestions into the story. I don't know if you noticed that.
Much like doing hypnotherapy.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much an obvious suggestion. But there was some about like having power and the practice, keep on practicing. And he'd do it every day, even though he didn't want to, or even though he didn't think he was capable. There are certain suggestions in there that could apply to learning anything. And the client will make it relevant to whatever it is the session is about. And this is an example of a story. I actually make them up as I go along.
Really?
Yeah. I just freestyle my stories often. I do tell true stories as well.
Have you ever like done hypnotherapy in a child? Or younger, like 9 years old?
You know, I haven't, but I would like to.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, I think so. I think they probably like be really good at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You also apply all like the stages of storytelling. There's a hero journey, he has a challenge,
Yeah.
he meets like an ally,
Yeah.
then he's overcoming it because he understands it's coming from him,
Yeah.
and then he's actually trapped in another challenge, but then he knows that he can do it because he already learned it. It's very good.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I consciously followed the hero's journey, but it did follow that
He
kind
did,
of, yeah, it did follow that kind of thing. That's always nice, people like the hero's journey. That's also worth checking out, The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. It's a book about the archetypal story, the monomyth he calls it. the myth that is behind many, many myths from different cultures. There's like a structure and a pattern to stories, which I can't go into right now, but it's worth looking into if you want to.
The hero with 1,000 faces.
Hero with 1,000 faces.
With 1,000 faces.
Heavy read. Maybe watch some videos on YouTube that kind of summarize it. Because it's a big book.
There is a really good book I read a while back. I forget the author's name, but it's called The Healing Power of Story.
The Healing Power of Story. Never heard.
Yeah, and the book is all about, it's a North American indigenous man. It's all about him using story and ritual to help people.
Oh, I'd love to read that.
Wow.
Habits.
I'll write that down myself. I'll check it out.
The Healing Power of Story.
It's really good.
The Healing Power of Story. Great. Oh, my battery just died. The Healing Power of Story. You remember me. What?
I have a charger here.
Oh, yeah.
Of storytelling or story?
Story.
Right, so I'm going to just break this down. I've used a lot of some modalities to make it immersive. I used repetition. Why did I use repetition? Because the unconscious mind learns through repetition. Much like he was practicing the thing over and over again, he was repeating it so his unconscious mind would learn how to do it. Repetition is useful in hypnotherapy, repetition is useful in storytelling. It doesn't always have to be there, but I really need multiple threading, which can mean that there's like several things happening at once. In this case, it was pretty straightforward, but I did like interweave it with suggestions about hypnotherapy, so multiple threading. So I'm threading different things together. You could thread several stories together, and then sometimes when you deviate away from the story, like I deviated away from the story to mention, much like in hypnotherapy, when you learn hypnotherapy and you practice, you might be like, well, what happened to the story? I want to hear the rest of the story. And sometimes you might start telling a story, stop talking for a while, go into a bunch of like suggestions, solution focus, this kind of thing, and then return to the story later on, just to fuck with it, just to fuck with their sense of continuity. And it's really good because that has a certain effect of creating something like an amnesia. So when you start a story and then you bring in suggestions and solution focused therapy or something like that, and then go back to the story and finish the story off, it's almost like they forget all of that stuff in the middle, which is useful for planting some big suggestions. I usually tell stories like this at the end of the session while they're just like chilling. I don't ask any questions, I just tell a story. And then maybe I'll thread some suggestions in.
Just like the, like really like, do you have like stories a bit prepared like for certain cases, but at the same time they're coming with what they have now, so you're really doing that like spontaneously, right?
And one thing you'll find is you could start a story and not know where it's going to go.
Okay.
I don't know where it's going to go sometimes, and I just tell the story. Because they're in trance, I can pause. And then I can continue the story. And then it always comes out good. There's always a good ending. Like I came up with this one, during a hypnotherapy session, I came up with this one story about a warrior who was like not particularly good warrior in the village. And I'm just telling you the abridged version because it was really long. It was like 30 minutes long, the story. But the elders tell him that he needs to find some treasure through this dark wood. There's this wood there. So he goes off on this journey through this dark wood, and telling all kinds of submodalities about the day and the night, and what it was like in the day and the night, and how he felt all this fear, and he still kept going to find the treasure. And he's doing it for days and nights, and then he finds a clearing finally in the forest where he believes he'll find the treasure, and he finds his way back to the village that he left from. And then he's met by the elders of the community, remind him that he is actually the treasure that he was looking for. And but you know, in the process of going through these woods, he went through a lot of challenges. He went through fear, and he went through feeling like he couldn't continue, and all of this stuff. But he kept on moving forward because it was his duty to do so as a warrior. Any questions?
That's very cool.
Mm.
No question.
Intuitive storytelling.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you can write a story, and I'm going to ask you to do that.
Yeah, I feel a little confused about the embedding and like, let's say you wanted to, you know, like you ask the client what they want to work on and maybe it's, can you give me an example of what they want to work on?
Anything really, let's say.
Being happier maybe?
Being happier, yeah.
And then so you would freestyle a story or write a story of happiness, like of someone who was sad and like encountered happiness, or
Yeah.
embed suggestions in there, like then this person woke up every day and started to just focus on what they liked and something like that and just like speaking to
Because you could say that, I mean, that really works well because, especially with something like happiness, you can tell stories like what they might be experiencing. They might be focusing on negative thoughts. So you can tell a story of someone who was bombarded by negative thoughts and just wanted to be happy and really wanted to be happy. And found that they were just listening to these thoughts. And you could even bring characters in, like their mother was very, very negative, and they took on all of these negative thoughts from their mother and from their father and their family, and everyone around them seemed so pessimistic, and this really affected, I don't know, Stephanie, let's say. And Stephanie was really affected by this. And sometimes she'd feel so low, she just wanted to hang her body because of all of this pessimism that was going on around her. And you know, she heard this pessimism so often that she even started to think in similar ways. And that would just add to that heaviness. But really all she wanted was to be happy. And one day she met somebody who just seemed so carefree. A young boy who was just playing in the yard and looking so light and so easy and just having such a good time. And Stephanie was curious about this boy. She walked up to him and very abruptly asked, "Why are you so happy?" And the little boy looked very confused by that question. He said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Why am I so happy? I'm just playing. I'm just enjoying. I'm just doing things that I like to do." And she said, "What? Doing things you like to do? How do you choose to do things you like to do?" It was an immediate suggestion. Choose to do things you like to do. And the boy said, "Well, you know, if you just do things that make you feel happier, and I choose to ignore all of those miserable people that just want to bring me down. I enjoy playing, and I enjoy being in the moment, and I enjoy thinking thoughts that are fun and exciting." And there's loads of little embedded suggestions in the things that little boy was saying. And then Stephanie learned from this little boy, when she'd see him playing in the yard, she would come out and she'd observe how free a person can be to just enjoy. When around, there'd be dogs barking, there'd be people in cars swearing at each other. This little boy was just playing and having such a good time, enjoying his imagination, enjoying the things in front of him, enjoying being presently in the moment. And Stephanie again met up with this boy until one day she started having the desire to just play and just to enjoy. And even those pessimistic people around her started to seem a little bit amusing. It seemed so funny how they could be so negative all the time. And this actually gave Stephanie a little bit of a chuckle when she'd hear these things. And you get what I'm saying? I'm going with this. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And that was on the spot.
Yeah.
That is even cooler actually. Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty sad.
We need to get some water. Would you like some water?
Could I please?
Yes.
Sarah, was that?
I said I would love some water, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a glass?
Yes, I do.
Was that example helpful?
Yes?
Are you sure? I don't know, I'm really gonna
I get it.
feel that in.
But yeah, I'm just not fully understanding. I mean, I think I'll see if we're going to practice more, but so we're not suggesting to them directly. So it's like enter a trance and then telling the story. Does the story get them even deeper into trance?
Kind of.
Usually.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Mm. And then there's suggestions that are hidden in the story. So you're basically using the story telling as a way of giving suggestions, but without them being necessarily the subject of the story.
Yeah.
But by using submodalities, they somewhat step into Stephanie or step
Yeah.
into John, or they start like experiencing the world through.
Is this a way of like bypassing the conscious mind in a way?
Yes.
Like the conscious mind being like, oh, you're telling me I'm gonna quit doing this, but what do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so you're kind of bypassing that.
Yeah.
The
You're,
conscious mind, if it's, but if a person's conscious mind is in the way and trying to reject it or questioning what's going on, either way it's accessing the subconscious mind, isn't it?
yes. And they will question what's going on because they'll be like, where is this story going? What are you going to say next?
Yeah.
During the storytelling, that's one of the perks of it, is that people are like captivated by the story. They want to know where it's going. Where what they don't realize is that you're planting little suggestions in there as you're telling the story. I mean, the suggestion of the whole story is probably obvious, but as you're telling it, you're putting little suggestions in there.
What about in traditional, like in parts or in solution theory or what's it?
Solution focus.
Yeah, solution focus. If you have a client who's like somewhat, I don't want to say reluctant, but like, you know, I'm just thinking of my like family and
Yeah.
and they're a little more like, okay, what's going on here? You know, what are we doing? And maybe questioning of like, oh, will I really stop? Is it really this simple? Or like, you know, just the mind might be like having those thoughts. And so is that conducive in a way because the conscious mind is like making noise and the subconscious is open and available and accessible? Or can the conscious mind hinder and basically like limit themselves in that belief that like, I don't know if this is possible. Like they have to believe on some level that it's possible, that I understand, but
Yeah.
if the conscious mind can get in the way in the sense of someone questioning what is going on here, like why am I envisioning my future self, this feels silly and stupid, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if they say something like that, then you can work with it. If they don't say something like that, there's not much you can do because you don't know, right?
Yeah, but if they say something like that, then
Yeah, you can be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of silly, isn't it? It's very, just like affirming. I mean, it's like, it's kind of stupid doing this stuff. But yeah, it's, you know, you can give it a try. And a lot of people have found this stuff to work, even though it's a bit strange, a bit weird.
yeah, and you maybe if you know that that's their tone, like you can say, envision the future self, and then even say things like, this might seem silly, or you know, unintelligent or whatever to do this, but just try, like what you're saying basically, and like that.
Yeah, and if you do it late enough in the session, they'll have gone through so much anyway. They'll be happy for you just to talk.
What do you mean?
So when you get to the story, if you get to a storytelling part, I generally do it at the end of a session. You could start a session with storytelling, which I do sometimes, but generally speaking, I'll do it at the end. And at the end, they're usually just like, you've done a lot of work. You might have done parts therapy and solution focus, and they're kind of like tired. So by that point, they're just like happy to listen to you.
So true. I got tired earlier today, like when we were doing it. So I started to get tired towards the end. So yeah, that's so.
Yeah, so you tell a story, and they're just like happy that they don't have to do anything, you know. And their unconscious mind is nice and open. They might not even be following your story. They might not even remember it. They might. Sometimes I've told stories and people cry and stuff like that. And they're like, wow, it's so relevant to my life. Oh my God, this is exactly what happened when I was a kid. And, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I have no idea. I was just freestyling.
And then, like you said that people who do hypnosis for success, that group based in the Bay Area or something.
Say again?
The hypnosis group based in the Bay Area that does it for success.
Mm-hmm.
You said they're all in suits and stuff.
Yeah.
What modality are they using? Do you know?
Capacity and...
Have we done that or no?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
I mean, it's very kind of standard hypnotherapy. But I think they also, bring in some Ericksonian stuff.
Capacity.
Yeah, but the guy who founded the school was called George Capas.
Okay.
His
And,
name.
but what exactly is capacity? Like what modality is it that we've done?
Well, this is Ericksonian, that's storytelling.
Okay.
Just making sort of distinctions between types of suggestions was a very Kappa style thing. How some people like direct, relax that head, relax this, relax that, and other people need more like metaphorical inference. The arm lifting one came from there, the arm lifting induction.
And then I wanted to ask about hypnosis for manifestation. Is that a thing?
Yes. Yes. The silver method is this one. Silver method uses hypnosis for manifestation. I don't do it like for myself. I do it for envisioning my goals, which could be manifestation indirectly. I do it for imagining taking steps, or I do it for imagining how my day will go and things like that. I'm a little hesitant with manifesting things, personally, because I have wanted things really a lot and then manifested them, and then in reality they've turned out not to be as I expected them to. So I don't ask for much anymore in that regard. But yeah, you can experiment with it. There's a lot of like law of attraction style hypnosis going on. You could have someone envision like the results of whatever it is that they want to manifest, having achieved it already in this present moment, feeling the feelings, experiencing what they're experiencing now.
Insurance.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a solution focused thing, but with maybe big goals. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, you could. That would be a niche to do law of attraction hypnosis. Some people would really dig that. People like manifesting stuff. No, I'm looking at you, but you're looking at me, so that's why I'm looking at you. So yeah, one way of entering into a story is you could just say my friend John or my friend whatever. Or you could like illustrate something that you want to say but you don't want to say it directly. Like if someone you felt was psychotic, you could say, oh my friend John came, or I had a client who was borderline psychotic. And he was having these thoughts that were like this and that were like that, and now he finds that all these voices work together as one. this is a kind of a way of indirectly suggesting that that person might be psychotic and you should bring your voices together and have one voice. This is like storytelling is a way of getting around that. Read stories, listen to stories, enjoy movies, find out what it is about them that you learn and that you feel when you watch a movie or when you read a book. What is it about them that is creating a suggestion, creating a change in you? Because I'm sure there's many movies you've seen where it's changed the way you view the world, or books you've read that have changed the way you view the world.
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Like they. Oh.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know it makes movies seem like so much more powerful now. Movies are really powerful because they include all the nearly all the senses. They use the music for the feeling,
Yeah.
and they have the images and the sounds. And yeah.
Whoa. So this is why, I mean, I understood that movies and books program us and things, but when you literally have a changed belief after that, it's because it went into your subconscious mind and did something to change something, and now you have a changed belief from witnessing that. Insane.
Yeah.
I often get really, really immersed in, I don't watch like a lot of things now because I get very immersed in the characters and I'll cry. I cried more tears than the actual actors a lot of times. So does that mean I'm fully, I mean, yeah, my subconscious is fully open? Wow.
Yeah, and that story is acting as a metaphor for something in your life. So you're resonating with it because it is meaningful to you in some way. I remember like watching Up. You see that movie Up, that Pixar movie? And there's that sequence at the beginning where they've been together their whole life and you sing this beautiful romance and then they are married and they're living together and then they're nice and settled and they're just in the same room and then she dies and it's all alone. And I remember crying so much. And then I looked to the person who was sitting next to me and they were crying.
Is it not just empathy though? And like empathy for what's going on? Or it's...
I mean, what is empathy? Other than something is triggered inside us that resonates with them.
So you could tell a story about watching a movie and having a changed belief and how what that was your subconscious.
Yeah.
And
that's also a story.
Yeah.
Like I just told you that story of Up, which is an illustrative story of the power of movies.
Oh my gosh.
It's like
Let's
it's
be
getting very
careful
meta.
and watch this. Really listen. Or not.
One thing you can do is add personal stories. I like to do this because it's personal. I had a person come to me recently who was in a relationship for a long time, and her partner, they broke up because he didn't want to travel and she did. I told 3 stories about relationships that I'd had where we mutually broke up, and I said how beautiful that. I told them the stories. It's like I told them how beautiful the relationship was, how this person was so caring and so kind and would like make me lunch and this, that, and the other, and this other person, and then eventually we decided that it was time to go because she had work to do and to live a life on her own, and I chose to let her go because that was love. So I was like trying to show this woman that love isn't just about staying together. Love can be about parting. So I told her another story about how I was in like my most recent long-term relationship. We played music together and we'd sing together and we'd be really silly and playful, and every day we had a lot of fun together, and we'd play concerts together, and every time someone thought of us, they thought of both of us, and we were very much a couple, and then I could see how sometimes, because we were doing all these things together, she wasn't doing and following her path. And I could see that occasionally this would get her down. And as I saw it get her down, I felt sad that her being with me was the reason why she feels so down. because she felt like she wasn't free to do what she needed to do. And so when the intensity increased of these moments where she felt down, I eventually told her that she needed to go on her own journey. And I told her that because I love her. And when I told this story to this woman, she was like, I told 3 stories, she was crying on every story. By that one, she was just like... So I think she got the message. These are true stories. These are actually true stories.
So are most movies?
You're like, what?
Are they literally doing this? Most movies?
Yeah, but I think they won't necessarily impact you so much if you're not
Interesting.
resonant with it in some way. If it doesn't apply to your life in some way, it might. I don't know. I mean, I watched a movie called Into the Void once that fucked me up for a few days. You see
In a
that?
good way, bad way?
No, I think ultimately a good way, but it came through darkness. Through darkness, there was light. Gaspar Noé is just crazy. Have you seen these movies? I don't know why I'm looking at you because he's French. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you must know him. He's French. You're French, therefore you must know everybody who's French. He did a movie called Irreversible as well. That was horrendous. Terrible movie. Don't ever watch it unless you want to really feel bad about life. But also in a good way. I mean, ultimately, watching these dark things, they teach us what we don't want to be and how we don't want to live.
I mean, if you see everything as a teaching,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
I'm okay. I have a question. So, like, when freestyling music, for example, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm in a trance-like state. I close my eyes and I'm seeing it, I'm living it. It's coming through, and most of the time, it's very, very powerful messages.
Yeah.
And it, is that hypnosis too?
Yeah,
Or is that,
because you can.
you know,
Yeah,
like-
it could be.
because I'm not here, like, I'm fully somewhere else living it.
Yeah.
When I'm saying it, and it's always affirmations and like about moving through things, and I'm seeing it happen as it's happening, and it's the most profound like healing thing for me. So is that bad?
That's like, you know, that girl in that story, that last story I just said with my partner for real. She didn't say the exact same words that you're saying right now. Yeah, I guess so. You are in a trance at least.
My what?
You are in a trance at least
Yeah.
in that state. Yeah. Maybe channeling something.
Yeah, but I'm also living it
You're living it as
Yeah.
you're living it.
as I'm singing it.
That's pretty sweet.
So is that some form of storytelling like this, basically?
Yeah, maybe.
What's spontaneous? You just go into spontaneous storytelling.
It's
Trance.
just when I sing.
Yeah. So compile stories. No. Compile stories of your life, like things that were important and significant to you. Just like think about them. Like your life is actually a brilliant story. There's so many stories and experiences you've had that you could share therapeutically.
What is the limit, the boundary?
The boundary is whatever you choose it to be.
Okay.
Like,
But ethically, there's no. Not ethically, no.
I mean, I probably wouldn't tell like my intimate sexual details to a client, but you know, maybe I would if that's what is appropriate to the session somehow. But you know, we don't have to name names or anything.
I think about it is also just understanding the subconscious takes everything very literally, you know? So like it won't understand sarcasm or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And just being mindful of the words, of what's being programmed, you know, since it's very open.
I wasn't talking about. For me, the limit was more like, you know, if you have traumas, You're welcome. If you're sharing that as well. Um, have you ever done that?
I do, yeah, I do. Some people think that they don't want to break the illusion of the therapist being some kind of like divine magician or something. I like to break it because I like to humanize the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I like to talk about my own challenges and shadows and things like that. That's up to you. Depends on how you want to approach it. But that can be, it can be healing for someone if, like, for example, they have sexual trauma and you have sexual trauma, that if you share that you have, you don't have to go into detail, but at least then they know that you understand to some level, to some degree. That can give them a sense of comfort. For example, and then, so my friend John is one way of telling a story. Telling personal stories about your life, not personal stories. I did a session with Stephen Brooks, who was about a coaching session for, as you know, for just for my practice, and he was telling me these stories. And then there was one story he said, so I worked with this man who was, you know, I did a session with this man. Basically, he told me more details, but and eventually, after many, many years, I received a gift through the post that said, there was, I can't remember what the gift was, it was maybe, let's just say chocolates for the sake of illustration. You got these chocolates and a card that said on it, there are 3 people who are important in my life. One is my mother, one is my wife, and the other is a man called Stephen Brooks who helped me overcome a certain challenge. So I was like crying when Stephen was telling me this story. But because he was using stories and illustration of how you can benefit someone's lives to the point that they can list you as one of the 3 most important people in their life. Yeah, that's really moving. He has loads of stories like that where, like 20 years later, people have been in touch with him and told him, like, it was a significant moment, and it's like you never know how much an impact you'll have on someone until down the line. I personally had sessions that haven't really started germinating until years later. Every session you do will have an impact in some way, somewhere down the line, and that time could be long, and it could be short. And then one thing I put here is little metaphors. So like when I did the induction, I was talking about, at the first induction we did, I talked about learning to walk. Now, when you first learned to walk, you couldn't do it, you could barely stand and you'd fall over, but you get up and you do it again. This is like a little metaphor.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Yes, little metaphors are another way of storytelling. Just slipping in like an analogy. So like, yeah, learning a new skill is like when you learn to read, and first you looked at the shapes and you didn't know what they meant, and then shapes became letters, and then those letters can form words, and now you can read these. That's a nice little metaphor for learning something new. You could say about, like, say, songwriting, or, you know, if you want to learn how to write songs, it can be a little bit like, you know, when you're in a place where the water system isn't very good and you turn the tap on and kind of muddy water comes out first, but after you keep trying, it's a bit like that muddy water, because eventually the water will run clear and you'll be able to write beautiful music. But first you have to go through the mud. You know? Little metaphors are nice. Exactly, yeah. Okay, that's it for storytelling. What time is it?
3:15.
3:15. Right, you have Oh, do you think you could freestyle a song? Would you like to try that? We would pair it up and then pair up, ask what it is that they want to like address. Maybe we could, yeah. And have you ever got an idea of something that you'd like to have a story thrown at? Yeah? Okay.